We've got 5 physical senses that get us in trouble. And then we've got 4 mystical senses that communicate with this highest self.
How practical is that to live in today's environment and not to consume any food?
It's a native Indian process where you dance with no food, no water, so you're completely dry. It's very practical because our food is shit, our water is not that great.
Now, thinking about it from an athlete perspective, do you think that these two worlds can be combined at all? Darkroom 101, let's go. Pavel Stuchlik, joining me on the podcast today. You have built a great career in various kinds of businesses, have owned multiple franchises of OrangeTheory, made a big business out of that, and then ventured out to do something totally different, to practice retreats in, I would say, holistic medicine, breath work, mindfulness, etc. And I'm very curious to talk to you about the whole journey of transitioning from the hardcore corporate world to becoming more mindful and working with our own mind and energy. So, Pavel, welcome so much on the podcast.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here with you in Prague. Like, it doesn't happen every day.
I hope that I have not messed up the intro a whole lot. Would you correct something or?
You forget all the losses in between. Those are the biggest wins because that's what teaches you the most. But, so many times we think being an entrepreneur, right, is such a clear path and people view the success. But I think there's also a lot of times that really makes us rethink in those times that we're not, being successful or however we call it in today's world.
I have a strong belief that those moments shaped you to who you are today, because the transformation just on your part has been tremendous. So I'm definitely intrigued by tapping into those moments and finding out what were the triggers that made you to explore this new chapter that you are on. And you have been on for quite a while. Just to put it on perspective, you have been doing these sessions for quite a while now. You have walked, I would say, thousands of, way more than that, tens of thousands of people, even more.
Yeah, a little over 100,000.
Okay.
And 500 events on every continent besides Antarctica. And I'm calling the penguins in eventually.
So when is Antarctica gonna be happening? That's the question.
That's in the field. That's something that will be, I think, amazing. It's funny. So after doing so many events, we now start thinking, how do we go to these vortex points on different parts of the world and, live stream this deep session all around cohesion of, multiplying the amount of people that can go into this state of coherence. And that's really been my biggest fascination, because a lot of my life I was worrying about me, and me, the self-centric world, and how do I become better and healthier. And I think it's part of it and it's great. But once you kind of capped out within your own self, you're like, how do we do this together? How do we create a new pathway for the future of our mankind, and how do we rethink the purpose of the life to begin with? Because if you think about the world, majority of us are having this deep calling somewhere inside of us and deep knowing that, this is not it. And that was for me, from a young age, I kept on questioning everything. And I was like, so I go to school, have my life paid for, or do I not go to school and start a first business? And that was, for me, the first kind of a pivotal moment in life, where I was about 17 years old and I was up-and-coming professional cyclist. And I didn't have enough funds to keep it going, and I did not feel school at all. And so So I start trading
You were
between.
not alone, I guess.
How many of us, right? Like, oh my gosh, like there is something not right with the whole system, and that's a whole podcast on its own. But in that moment, I started my first company. I was trading between Alibaba and eBay. And so what I would do is, this is 20 years ago, before Alibaba was what is it today. And I would basically put a picture of a carbon bike frame. So I was still in the biking business. I would put it on eBay, and then whenever it's sold on eBay, I would use the money to pay the Chinese factory, and then I would drop ship it to whatever person bought it. And so that was my first business that I started with, $0 down, made the what's today's drop ship, right? A very common way to do business. And then it grew. And so what happened for me, I kept on racing around the world on a bike. I did end up, becoming professional athlete. And but I didn't rest. I didn't recover. And basically I grew it to a sizable company where I would focus on custom carbon bike frames. So every city I would travel to, instead of me going just for the race, I would go and talk to the bike stores and the other places that were selling, I don't know, Specialized or Trek bikes. And I was like, I've got the same frame, not the branded name. You can put your own brand on it, and it's for fraction of the cost. And so that was my first, dropship business that I ended up selling when I was 21. But it completely crushed me. So instead of recovering and taking time off and, sleeping, right, that you need with, I don't know, 20,000 miles a year on a bike,
Right.
I completely crashed. I got diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, chronic strep. I was literally sick every 2 weeks. And that's what led me into wellness, biohacking, Wim Hof, that deep depression from losing the identity of being a professional athlete. You know how it's like everything you can, imagine.
Do you feel like that it's part of your mindset that when you do something, you give it your best without looking at the circumstances, really?
It's literally, I always tell people, like the endurance and mental endurance comes from cycling, because there's been so many times you fall, you lose, right? Like it's like unpredictable sport in so many ways. And it's funny because when I stopped cycling, which was about 20, I had to quit quite early. I didn't put all of my power into business. And so that's when I moved to America, and I was trying to get a E2 visa, to figure out a way how to get there. And funny enough, I first found a sushi restaurant in Boulder, Colorado, that I closed on, but then it didn't qualify because you know how if you don't have enough income versus employees,
Right.
none of the restaurants report any income. So even though it was a great business, didn't really show that. So I literally had to leave there again, lost a whole bunch of money, and I found Tutti Frutti frozen yogurt chain in Hawaii. And do you remember the frozen yogurt era? Like when it was all of a sudden everywhere. So I kind of caught that wave of just building a bunch of stores in the state of Hawaii. I was also supplying the other stores, and I got sick and tired of making people fat. That's literally what happened. And
It's good that you realize that, because I think many people don't realize that, and the profits are still there, right? Because people will still go and buy it. But it seems like you are a bit fed up with it.
yeah, and especially Hawaii with tourism. I mean, it's just like it's
Yeah,
a
right.
it's a basically a jackpot machine, with frozen yogurt. No, but I kept on searching something deeper, something closer to what I care about, and so I flew to Florida, and I found this thing called OrangeTheory Fitness. And this is when there was maybe 6 stores. That's it. Like it wasn't a proven franchise. It was totally like at the beginning. And I was 22 years old, and I basically had little experience in business, but I drove across the state to meet the founders, go to the corporate office. This is when they had 5 employees, right? Like super small, like nothing to what, there's now 2,000 plus locations, worldwide. And then there's this kid from Czech that comes in and is like, I've
I,
got some.
I would like to have a franchise.
I would like to franchise your market. Do you have something left? And so I think they were like somewhat impressed by my history, but then at the same time they gave me 2 days because franchises, they redisclose once a year. And then there's like a dark period for about 2 months where they cannot sell more. And so they were just saying, we have Georgia State. We were going to keep it because we're in Florida. That's where they were headquarters. But if you can figure it out, get everything down within the next 2 days, you can have it. And
So they basically gave you an unrealistic deadline.
well, it was their polite way to say fuck off.
So
um,
how did you work with that then?
so I figured it out. And within about 4 days, I was driving to Atlanta, Georgia, where I was before for cycling. I actually did tour of Georgia many, many years ago, but that's about all I knew. And within 6 months, we were the fastest growing region in the entire chain. So I bought it with 25 units, 25 licenses. We ended up selling 55 in the whole state. And basically, I just put all I mean, I didn't have really history in real estate or any of this, but I think being in a franchise, I just followed it to the T. And I knew if they had it successful, then what I can do is make it better, right? Whatever I feel in whichever places intuitively more than any experience, you know? And so yeah, so I've always been really huge on company culture. Side note, I don't even have a high school. I paid my friend to finish high school for me online and to act like it's me. But I've always done immense amount of self-study. So I would go into these retreats and workshops, and that kind of painted the way for where I'm at today, because every 3 to 4 months I committed myself that I'll do something ridiculous. And so, whatever it was, samurai camp in Japan, I've now spent over 50 days in darkness. Every year I do 10 days in complete, dark room with no food. And then I spend time with the psychics in Brazil. But all of that was from the search, deep search of what is true meaning of life. And is this it? How can I heal myself, naturally? And so through the next about 6 or 8 years, I was just building and building Orange Theories. I ended up uh, partnering with the president and CEO, and we did something called a super urban project. So we went into Bay Area, we went into New York, we did Nevada, also Hawaii and Oregon. And so I had about 7 regions with almost 100 locations under my belt by the time I was 26 years old.
So you have figured out a great combination of activities during your workshops. I have done one of them. I definitely want to come for more. Like immediately when I finished the session, I was like, where are the next ones? Where can I travel to experience more of that? How fast is it evolving? How are you adding or removing things that you see working more or less?
Well, I've built it like a template. So it's essentially, so at Orange Theory, every single day the workout is different. And so I've learned a lot from making it different, changing depending on the market, the city, what the field, so to speak, is required to receive. And so what I did is that every section is interchangeable based on the how many times we've been to the city, or based on what intention that we're going through. And so like we have a different format. For example, for the summer, we do fire and ice version, where we also do an ice bath fire party after with, healthy drinks, and it's non-alcoholic. And in a New Year's, we do the New Year's edition, where we're, setting up the right goals and follow throughs based on your heart, not just the mind. So they switch around. And that's something that we're building right now. We're going to actually have a teacher training that will be kind of like a franchise in a ways, but because so many people out there, they're done with the old corporate jobs, or they don't like the way they
Like you.
yeah. And so I'm basically creating a pathway for people. How do you actually live in service and make, great amount of income? And so that's something that we've been now piloting, is that, we don't have to cut people and cut the corners, to make profits. There is a way to do it, on the other way. And so that's something that's coming soon.
I have a strong feeling that the experience that you put together is very tailored to you being the creator of that. And I felt it. So how do you work with that so others create their own unique experience when they are hosting those sessions?
Well, so what what connects us all is the fact that we're all going through transformation, is the fact that life is in patterns and you're not going to run away from these patterns, right? So what happens if you look at life, we live in a different, zones. Like if you were to look at different patterns as a different cycles that will keep on coming back to you until you re-see them anew. And so I'll give you an example, right? You may be every few months, you get sick. Maybe it's physically, maybe it's some sort of autoimmune. Maybe at the same time, you're also thinking negatively. And maybe at the same time, you have an issue with your wife, husband, or whatever you're into. Now, what I used to notice is that things are happening to me, right? And then I would go into a victimhood. Why me again? Why am I losing again? Until I realized, like, hold on, these are the greatest gifts for us, because anywhere that there are things that are on fire, so to speak. So negative emotions, relationships, or I don't know, underfunding company, or whatever it can be. That is an opportunity that there is something that we're out of alignment. And so I would start looking in instead of running away from the problem and from the pain. And that is something that unites us all. So what's key to this is that we are living and breathing, a greater meaning, greater purpose on life. We're all inherently one. If you go deep enough, even into the quantum physics, we are coming from the same source. And so that's why no matter who it is from, everyone has things to say. Everyone has experiences to share. And just because someone, is a little bit ahead with the amount of people, that doesn't matter at the end of the day, because there are people that will learn from you that will not get the same message from me. So, and that's the beauty about life. We came here to, ascend or descend, right, from oneness. We then do this thing called life, and we learn and we fail and we do all of those things, that come into it. But in the process, we exchange those gifts with one another. And so we used to exchange them where we would keep them to ourselves, right? Running away from them, hiding from the truth, right? But now what we're seeing is people wanted to come out. People want to show these greater lessons. And so that's really what this is for. And it will require philosophy as well. And that's actually what's taking the longest, is really building the foundation for something that's so simple, so digestible into everyday life. And that's truly what I've learned from this. Life does not have to be hard. It's us that think that need to have a 15-step process to make something,
I could not relate more with that. And I would love to get your opinion on like how you work with mindset, because I feel it's all in our heads. And when you mentioned like that, every few months we might be getting sick, when I thought to myself, like, I kind of, not that I would entirely eliminate that from my life, but I very rarely get sick, because in my head, the scenario of getting sick is simply not there. Like, and it's intentional, right? I do all the things to help me protect from getting sick. I know that, like, in the past, before I stopped drinking alcohol more than 5 years ago, I knew that lack of sleep, alcohol, um, and like just being under a lot of stress, it's an immediate situation. And like I just learned to kind of find balance. And I don't even admit that in my head that I might be getting sick. Yeah, of course, like it happens, but instead of it happening, let's say every 3 to 6 months, it's like every couple of years, which I think it is partially the mindset as well. And I think it's also with many other things out there. And that seems to be an important part of your practice as well.
Yeah, and also what is the meaning of being sick, right? So a lot of times, especially with seasonal influenza, right? It actually upgrades our system. It upgrades our DNA, so we can take on more. And so that was also like, wow, like hold on, like getting sick once a year or twice a year, sick means that we're just upgrading. So it's all about mindset. It's also life is about choices and consequences. Like that's it. Like what do you choose? And you can choose either from the regenerative spiral, right? Which is like living a healthy life, like following, I don't know, exercise and sleep and everything that we know and that's been around, for ages, right? What's regenerating. But then you can also choose degenerated spiral, which is, maybe one drink leads to the second drink. Then you take drugs. Then you don't sleep all night. Then, it has this, negative effect. And that's it. Where if you look at life as a keynote, you can be playing the high note, the low note, and the note in between. But that is all starting from the origination of our choice, right? So the choice starts at the mind. And so what I found through this, we teach this 4-step process that can be literally applied to anything. So step 1 is you waking up. You're starting to see those patterns. You're starting to see those things that simply don't work. And asking everything is the most important superpower, because I like to question everything all the time. And it could be as simple, does this choice work and does it not work? If you're unsure in life, I ask the question, what would love do now? So that way, instead of seeking answers somewhere outside, we start questioning, from the inside. So when you wake up, you start seeing those things that don't work, you bring them to the surface. The second step is you clean up. So you start getting rid of the old, thoughts, belief system around, health, relationships, and so forth. In order for us to then go to the next step, you got to really let go of the old, the non-serving stuff. And I used to want to be the old person and also the new person. And guess what? Highs and lows and good days and bad days. So if you want to step outside of the dualistic mindset, we call it the lower aeons, or the Gnostics call it the lower aeons. You move into the upper aeons, which is the name of our company, which is the divine union, love, where duality doesn't lie anymore. So the third phase is you power up. So to make it super simple, let's say that you go to a doctor, then you get your blood drawn. You are high on environmental toxins, low on vitamin D, something very simple. So what would you do? Second phase, you would be detoxing, right? Sauna, I don't know, ozone, whatever is available. The third phase is you would start introducing vitamin D supplement. So this is when biohacking, this is when these tools and gadgets become really powerful, because when you power up, you take the charge of your driver's vehicle again and you're going forward. You accelerate. And then the fourth phase is resting up and reassessing. Repeat this cycle. And so it becomes like a nature and like a easy thing that you just do, automatically eventually. And some people call it different ways. For me, this was really simple. And so what I did is I used this model on the most prominent parts of my life. So I started with my physical health. I was sick, I was depressed, I had anxiety. I just had to figure out, okay, how do we work with this, right? Then I moved into the mental body, which is the thoughts, the mindset. And mind is a powerful tool if it works for us, not against us. So I like to use my mind like a billboard. When you're driving down the street, you have a choice. You look what's on the billboard, you read it or listen to it, or you pass by. So that's how I speak to my mind, is like, thank you, but no thank you. I don't need you right now. Just step aside and I'll call you when I need your support. Mind is great for booking of flights, transferring between bank accounts, right? That's what makes us ground and live in this, dimension. Now, then I looked at my emotions, and this is when life really starts getting real. These are the feelings. What I've learned through emotions is the lowest state is apathy. This is when you are numb, you don't care anymore. And a lot of times we don't even know that it's there, but it's holding up all of this creativity, all of this vital force energy. And the highest state of emotional freedom is joy, happiness. And so reminder, that's why we came here to this world, is to experience the greatest version of the greatest self. But to get there, in between, you've got fear, guilt, jealousies, all of the things that we also generationally and whatever country you're from, right, we have to go through and process, so that way we can be free of that. And then the fourth body that I looked into, which is ironic, it should be the first one, now when I reverse it, is the spiritual body. And so I call it the original source vibration that gives us life when we're born, and it goes back into oneness when we die. Now, this is the most interesting one because that's the one that's limitless, right? The limitless source of informations come from our spirit or soul, whatever we might call it. Now, I don't like these terms because it's also been so overutilized with new age, and I want to keep everything very grounded because ultimately when you go too spiritual, you get lost in, being broke and not having money and saying money's bad and, all of that side of lessons. And then when we become too capitalistic, it's all about money and fame and power, money, sex, the fuel of this world. But somewhere in between is that we can have both and we can be in balance, in harmony. And so one of those crazy trips I took was in Brazil. And I went into this psychic village, and it was in the middle of nowhere, after John of God retreat. And they taught me something so simple. We've got 5 physical senses that get us in trouble: overconsumption, too much sex, too much alcohol, all of the sensory stuff. And then we've got 4 mystical senses that communicate with this highest self. And so the first part is our inner hearing. These are the little whispers that are maybe telling you at night, turn off the movie. Maybe in the morning, go work out or quit drinking alcohol. It's the subtle voices in our head that we don't always follow, and you don't follow it long enough. And that's when shit hits the fan in our life, by the way, because they're always there for us to support us. So how do you work with that? You simply start acknowledging those voices. It's not the lousy monkey brain, you're not good enough and this is not for you and maybe for someone else, or maybe I'll work out later, that chatter. This is a voice that always has your back. It will never tell you to slap your neighbor. And so essentially, you hear that voice and you say, thank you, I heard that. And the magic keyword is what you're going to do about that. So that's the first one. The second one is your inner feeling. This is the empaths of the world. And this is when, you've probably walked into a room in the past and maybe there was a fight. Something didn't feel right. Something is not right. Or you had a bad feeling about a person or a business decision. Like it just didn't feel right. So that's the second pattern. We're feelers as well. The third pattern is your seeing, your inner seeing. So some people can see things before they happen. I'll give you an example. A new product launch, right? Like somebody thought of something that has never been there, and maybe it came to them in a shower or right when they were waking up. Typically, it's theta-induced state because it's all connected to the subconscious mind. And those are the seers, the visionaries, of the world. And then you've got the knowers, so to speak, which is you knew that you shouldn't have gone to the party. You knew that person was cheating on you. Every bone of your skin just knew it, but maybe we didn't follow it just yet. And so when you think, you do not know. When you know, you do not require to think. So that's how you discern, that part. So these are the 4 major patterns that talk to us, but without us acknowledging them, and most importantly, following what is it telling you, we will think that we won't trust it. We don't trust it enough. And so again, just like in the franchise days, I followed it to the T and I was like, let's see what happens. And so what started happening for me, the little voice start being louder and louder. The senses start becoming more prominent to a point where you still use your mind, but just to validate it, right? It's like you use the gut and the brain, right, to whatever it's analytics, whatever it's numbers, like that is nothing wrong with that. But you use your heart, you use these senses to guide your step to the greatest version or greatest path and the highest outcomes here on earth. So I call this the me, the individual consciousness that we all can affect: your mind, your body, your emotions, and your spirit. And then when you kind of get over that whole self-centric part and you start like really wanting to expand, that's what happened for me, is you step into the we, and that's the collective consciousness. And so this is made up of relationships. It's made up of the environment that we live in, the quality of air, water, food, what makes up the whole that comes back to the individual. And then the last part of that is your social structures, right? Like taxes and like how much power we're giving to the world, right? In that whole part of the world. And so that's I call the we. And then the final part to this model is B, which is supra consciousness. And that is if you keep on zooming out, we're such a little dot in this vast thing called ocean of universe. And we are operating in all three levels in a simplified way all the time. And we are off the whole, right? So me, we, and be. So what I did is I applied those 4 steps into these major areas of my life. And then one by one, kind of like a business plan, I would write myself, okay, what do I need to fix? What do I got to work with? And that's what, created basically this pathway that we now teach in our events and workshops.
So you have this process, and I really like that. You know, you mentioned that you did not even finish high school, or you had a friend to finish it for you. But then you come up with these great structures and processes. How basically you go about building a massive business, like 100 Orange Theory locations. It's not. It's not an accident. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of smart work, and then also thinking about how do we apply it to life and mindfulness and everything related to that. This is crazy. Uh, I can't really comprehend where it's coming from, but I feel like it's coming from the source. Uh, what are some of the things that you would like to try out in the next, like you mentioned, every 3 months you go and do something crazy? What is on your list right now of things that you would like to give a shot to?
My crazy list is Sundance. I want to do, I think it's 3 or 4 days. It's a native Indian process where you dance with no food, no water, so you're completely dry. And so I've been always intrigued, by music, by dance, by movement. It's been obviously one of our big pillars. Because we call it the BDM method, by the way, which stands for breath, dance, meditation. And I come from EDM, and I loved always EDM.
EDM and EDM. And I also like a little side note, the kind of music that you play during those sessions, it's like it's epic.
Thank you. It's all reharmonized and it's all live as well. So that's why every time it's a little bit different. There's a lot of looping. There's a lot of every city. We don't. Well, sometimes we travel with the same singer depending on the tour, but most of the times we have local talent. So they make it. We call them the gatekeepers of the local cities, and so that's what makes every location different.
And now coming back to the experience that you would like to try, the Sundance, how does it work? What is so special about it?
Well, I've noticed, I mean, some of the deepest times that I've had is when you're, either fasted or you're connected to prana, to the source. And so I think it's a way that you can another way to lose everything that we know and come back into everything, from a whole different perspective. And that's why, like, for me, every year I do the 10 days in darkness. And the lady that was my mentor, she's actually, this is the last time ever in September that she's going to be doing it, and only for those that will keep her teachings, moving. So what I did, I actually we're building a darkroom retreat in Miami on a regenerative farm, and we're going to be able to bring darkroom, to the world where it's much more, I won't say luxurious, but comfortable, because where I used to go, it's definitely not comfort. So
So where did you start
uh,
with the darkroom experience?
so it's about 30 minutes south of Miami. And it's on Regenerative Farm. I've partnered with Sentner, Layla and David Sentner, which are incredibly successful people, but they want to live their life in purpose. So they've been doing really lots of beautiful projects just like that. And so our company, we're going to be building all of their wellness offerings, and one of them will be the dark room.
And where was the first darkroom that you have ever
Oh,
visited?
Thailand
Oh, in
in
Thailand.
Chiang
Okay.
Mai. Yeah.
Okay. Chiang
So.
Mai.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
So it's the same place where Mantak Chia. So some of the work I've done was through the Taoist and Taoist tradition, But Jasmuheen would take that on for the last 25 years, and she's a breatharian. So she actually was the first woman bringing to the world that you don't need to eat physical food, to be alive. And it's far out there. And honestly, that wasn't really why I even went into it. But when I didn't feel hungry for 2 weeks after the 10 days of not eating, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, how is this possible? And so she taught us this 8-point luscious lifestyle that essentially when you follow, everything is about how, the way you live your life. And so when we're busy on the calls and, chasing money and sex and power, you're going to be hungry and you're going to be living in a very dense space. But when you're following your passion, your purpose, how many times it happened for you when you had a new idea and then you forget about food, you forget about like all the other
So
things.
many
You're
times.
just in the
So
flow,
many
right?
times.
So do you see what I'm saying? So we don't require as much density when we are living in this beautiful state of highest expression.
Now there's so many avenues that we could take, breatharian life. I'm very intrigued by the idea. I'm not sure what the people watching and listening will think about me exploring that, but no, I like, to me it's fascinating. And um, what was the longest time that you have been without food?
Yeah, I would say about 25 days. But so this is the misconception. People think that you're fasting, but if you're fasting, you're losing weight. And so the first 3 dark rooms that I've done, I've always lost weight. Sometimes even, you know, 10 kilos, like a lot. And I was trying to convert it from pounds. Ironic.
We work with both.
Being Czech, going back now. But anyway, so I never really understood it. I had a feelings of it, and then I understood that all of a sudden you feel satiated, so like you literally lose hunger. But she teaches you a way to test it. So through muscle testing, you're testing your prana levels. So everybody, no matter who you are, we are prana or source, ha, mana, chi, so many names for the same. That's the life force energy that we all have. We would not be alive without it. That some people think that's the soul or the spirit, right? The energetic body. But in our life, because the way we're spending the life, we're using it and tapping just a small percentage. So sometimes, you start 90-10, right? 90% you need physical food as a fuel and 10%, prana as a source. But as you progress each day in a retreat or in the dark room, it's basically initiation into this pranic, living. And so maybe day 3, you're 50-50. Then day 5 or 6, you become more prominent in prana. And when you convert 100%, you literally lose hunger. You just feel filled. So I think it was third or fourth time I was like, okay, I want to figure out how does this work, and I'm just going to allow it and see if what she says is true. Again, I follow it to the T and see what
I
happens.
love the pattern, I think that's the key
Yeah.
in your case, for sure.
If someone says that something works and they're not liars, they are authentic, it's going to work, right? Like there is no reason not to. And then once you embody that, then you can start talking about it. And that's how it happens for me with System Reset. It's every lesson that is there, I deeply went through, and I've, crafted it to a point where it was easy and digestible for others as well. But anyway, so third or fourth time I go in, they have a picture before and after, and I can show this to you. I literally gain weight after being, 10 days in darkness with no food. And for the first time, I understood it because she does variety of coding. So one of the codes is perfect weight, because the mind, right, the software directs the body, the hardware, and just like a computer, when you connect to the internet, you can download new software or new apps. So what we're doing there, we're connecting to the inner
Now
net.
you're speaking my language.
I
New apps.
I had to. And okay, so staying on the apps, imagine that we have 100, 200 apps on our phone, and we maybe use 10, 15, right, on a daily basis. And so what does the rest of it do? It's holding up your storage, right? And what does that remind you of? Unprocessed emotions, unprocessed relationships, unprocessed thoughtful, patterns. And so what I start doing is literally looking at those apps, holding the app, exiting out of it, so deleting the app, and then re-download from the internet, right, from the infinite source of information, the apps that you want your life, the new patterns to learn from. And so this is literally what, by the way, System Reset 101 is. It's we're working with these coding that was all inspired by Jas Mohin and by this work of, recoding our belief system essentially. So yeah, so about 25 days was the longest. For me, always it's actually a fear that kicks it back in, ironically, because you're like, is this, is this normal? Like, am I
Is this
okay?
safe?
Like, what am I gonna do? And then also busy life, So
That's what I wanted to ask. How practical is that to live in today's environment and not to consume any food if uh,
So it's very practical because our food is shit. Our water is not that great, and so it's funny. It's like ultimately it's in all of our patterns, but in different blueprint and different person will have a different time. The key to this is you cannot go into it with your mind like I'm going to be a breatharian, because it has to be in your blueprint and it happens for you naturally. So for me, I find a balance in eating once, twice a day, mostly liquid and very, very clean. I still take supplements. I still, I'm kind of like on that borderline. Anytime I go into darkness, I'm like, I don't need any of this. And it's funny, like I'm like, why am I even, doing all this? But it's a process, so it's a process of trust. It's a process of coming back to your inherent infinite eternal self, that's beyond the physical body. But as I'm growing and moving towards it, I can see how beneficial it is. And not so much because of not wanting to eat. You can still eat, but you eat for pleasure. You don't eat for the calories, or you don't eat for survival. Does that make sense? So maybe you
well,
choose.
makes total sense. But now thinking about it from an athlete perspective, do you think that these two worlds can be combined at all?
I think eventually, as of right now, because of the amount of research, science, studies, and belief system that we need, carbohydrates, or we need, uh, every, I don't know, 30 minutes, depending on the sport, right? Like I think it's a pretty far delta, right? I think you would have to really anchor it in before you become an athlete again. So you would kind of have to really nurture some time to fully convert. And even for Jasmine, she's had a time where everybody was giving her like, horrible press, and like people were going after her because this literally is like the furthest thing from.
It is extremely controversial, and like I can be clear about that. I'm a very open-minded person, right? So I will listen to anything, and then I will evaluate on my own whether I feel it's true or it's not true, whether it can apply to myself or cannot. But I try to, as you said, question everything,
Mhm.
but also like be very open-minded and not like ruling it out right from the get-go.
Yeah, that was always my intention, is having an open heart and open mind. And just to remind you, I was an entrepreneur going into these experiences. So who I am today, right? Like I didn't have this belief system to the level that I have built through having the experience. But same thing, I was open minded and hearted enough to receive, get the template, right? Okay, help me understand how to do this. I will apply it, and if it works for me, I'll be wow. But this was such a far concept, even for me. Like especially the first time that I went in there, it was like, what? Like I didn't understand any of it. Like even like the language he was using, it was really far out. But it was amazing because finally somebody has challenged every belief, that I had from the conventional level, which ultimately is expanding us, right, to some greater horizon.
Can we spend a little bit of time talking the high-tech gadgets that you use and how you use them, which ones you found effective and which ones you think are just a gimmick? Because you have Apollo Nero, it seems like it's one of your favorites. How do you use it, and what you get out of it?
Yeah, so a little background first. We have three different categories, and any product that we sell, it's the same thing. So I've bought every product out of the category. I've put it through rigorous testing, so we know whatever it works or doesn't. So it's a thing about our company is like a verified process where somebody doesn't have to go through the depthness of research and studies and the scientific paperwork. And then we used it also personally. So everything that we have, we use on a daily basis. And as you can see, I don't go without this. And where by the way, I came from Dave Asprey's way. So when I sold Orange Theories, I helped consult the first biohacking lab, the Upgrade Labs,
Uh-huh.
in LA, and I helped them.
Yeah. Spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, so exactly. So I help them, with operations, with sales, with bringing, my business background into that. So from very early stage, I had this access to this whole world. So I knew already what kind of was working and what wasn't. And until today, we just opened a 33,000 square feet biohacking heaven in Malaysia, which has all of this under one roof, but also the ones they're not just wearables. You can, things like hyperbaric and, uh, PEMF and stem cells, exosomes, everything under, one place. But in our company, so we have three categories. First category is EMF and environmental protection. That's from air filters, water filters. You know how I talked about the we, right? The collective. So I looked at all of the things that are bringing toxins into our body, and then we wanted to reverse it. So, me and my wife, we built a fully environmentally safe space for us, because at least in America, it's like 55% of homes are full of mold and toxic water. I mean, it's toxic paint, right? It's really horrific. So that's when we were looking at that category. The second category is healing products and essentials. So we have, different shilajit for minerals. We have mitozen, which is methylene blue, NAD, glutathione, all of the advanced nutraceuticals that are bioavailable. And our friends are actually here today before our system reset workshop. They're coming from the States to bring methylene blue, to our activation. And by the way, we also activate all the people in our event. So we have them be able to, test these different devices. And then the third part of our category is we call it the consciousness expansion. And that's light, sound, vibration, and guidance. So vibration is Apollo. This says directly work with your vagus nerve, and it helps you with nervous system. Like right now, I have it on calm, which is inducing flow state. And there's different, categories that you can put. My favorite before sleep is to unwind, and then I put deep sleep, and it communicates with your aura, so it integrates. So
Oh, they have an integration.
yeah, it's something new.
Integration. Okay.
The last few months.
Wow.
And what's amazing is you're falling out of deep sleep, it vibrates you back into deep sleep. So now you can really maximize your HRV, your heart variability, but also the depthness and how long you stay in deep sleep. The other favorite part is something called Neurovisor, which is a flickering light.
Yeah, I've tried it at your event.
Yep, I call that the VIP lane to present moment. It works directly on neuroplasticity, similarly to like psilocybin or any of the other psychedelics on the market. Light has been around since 20s, so the science is actually quite old, but it's never been put into a place where you can travel with it when it's also affordable enough to use. So there you can do trauma releases, you can do deeper sleep, you can do just focus. You choose from over 100 sessions. And we provide content for all of them. So we have our breath work, we have our meditations. So you can do like a quick system reset, for example, with your device. Then we've got Thrive, which is a gut and brain red light. We chose that because it's direct skin contact and it gives you the right amount of red light for the day. So essentially, mimicking sun, especially winter Europe or anywhere else that it
I
gets
had
really.
Sarah from Thrive on the podcast.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah.
So yeah, so we're dear friends, and it's part of our light spectrum. We also use IO glasses, which are blue light, which is for the first thing in the morning. Again, in the summer, sun is the king. That's where the most important part is. But if you are, for example, traveling like us, first thing when I wake up in a new country, I put them on to reset your circadian rhythm, so that way you can wake your body up.
So it's the opposite of having blue light blocking glasses in the evening. You basically take them on to start the day right.
Exactly. So a lot of people, shit on blue light, so to speak, but it's the kind of blue light, right? So like this blue light that we have here is horrible, but the blue light blocking or the IO glasses, it has the morning spectrum of the sun, so that way it's exactly that blue light that is
And it's all about timing, right? Blue light is not bad. Blue light in the morning supports the circadian rhythm, but blue light in the evening ruins it.
crashes
So
it. Yeah,
it's the dosage and timing of things that is the most important. It's not that blue light would be just purely bad.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you spend a lot of time on the go, and with a family, right? And you go 500 plus events. How is it living that life and uh, staying at peace? Do you have also a process for that?
I do. Well, so
I'm not surprised.
yeah, well, so I've always experienced burnouts. Like my highs and lows, like that's really what ended my cycling career. And then I brought that same mindset into business. And so I actually, it's funny, I'm still on a stage race, even now, because sometimes we do 6 cities in one week. We just do it with our events. But essentially, first of all, jet lag is a myth. Like there's so many beautiful things you can do to completely bypass that. But to focus on specifically on how not to burn out and how to stay in balance, I use something called process of unhooking, from this busy, busy world. And so once a day, first hour of the day, I spend it just by myself. I do either Visor, Sarah Thrive, I do some breath work, meditation, I visualize the day ahead of me. And even this morning, I woke up at 6 and I made sure that before I even step here, it's that golden hour for me to go, inward. Once a week, I take a full day off. So I digitally fast, I physically fast, and the first half of the day, I'm just by myself. The second half of the day, I also spend it with my wife and the 3 children that you saw that are with us everywhere. And I think about it as an entrepreneur. I look back in a week. What have I done right? What do I want to improve? And I look forward in a week. What's ahead of me? How do I want to be a better person? And I look at the most important parts. Just like if I ran a company, but it's the company of my own well-being. Once a month, I take 3 to 4 days completely off. So as you can see, as the blocks are increasing, I again completely unhook. I go inward and I look at the whole past month and the month, to follow. And once a year, I spend 10 days in darkness with about 2 weeks completely off, also for integration. And I look at the year ahead and the year, that have come. And so even though I travel more than ever, even though I live a crazier life than ever, I feel more balanced than I ever have. I feel healthier than I've ever had. And so it's all about knowing when to go and knowing when to pause because we can't just keep on going. There has to be that balance, in all of that. And something that I haven't done, and I highly encourage, every 7 years you take a year off. That one gives me even butterflies.
That's a big one, right? Wow.
So that's
Yeah.
something that I would love to do. Because imagine that you every 7 years you rebrand yourself completely,
Yeah.
to keep on
You
expanding.
disappear for a year and then you come back as a new person.
Yep.
That's massive. That's massive.
So that's on my list, actually.
I have no doubts. I have no doubts. Outside of going to your human reset events, what would you recommend to people that are interested exploring more about themselves, exploring more mindfulness? What's the starter pack that they should be doing?
Well, so something that we can offer to everyone is our school community. We launched it a couple months ago, but it's a free community that people can connect from like-minded people around the world. It has something called 7-day commitment to you. So you can start with just 5-minute blocks a day, and then it's gamified. So more you're connecting and doing, then more it will unlock. So I highly suggest go to it has breath, it has dance, meditation, it has sound, it has kind of all of the things that we found to increase your vibration to the highest level. We also have courses and on-demand library, so people can actually learn through that. But most importantly, if you can take something from today, it all starts with every second of your life. And the question is, number one, are you aware of your breath? So what we're doing now, you might be listening to us in a car, you might be, I don't know, working out, but can you come back to your breath? The gold standard is about 6 seconds in through your nose, 6 seconds out your nose. So throughout the day, whenever you are aware of your breath, you are in your body, you are in your conscious mind. The second part, ask yourself, where am I? Where am I? Because most of our life, we're in the past, in the future, and we forget that this is that biosystem that we have, like right here. And so I like to be fully present in my body in a relaxed state. And I like to a little trick. I imagine these little champagne like bubbles bubbling up around my whole body. And when I inhale for 6, you inhale through these bubbles. When you exhale for 6, you exhale out these bubbles as if your whole body was breathing you. So that is when people say being aware of being aware, you are in your body, you're aware of your breath. Now, to give you an example, I have a phone here. What happens when we go on a phone, right? We extend our consciousness somewhere outside of ourselves. We then tense up and we lose the sight of our breath, AKA we go on autopilot, right? So, how do we use technology safely? Even when we go on computers or phones, you stay in your body. You are aware of your breath and it becomes an extension of us instead of us completely giving all of the power into those devices.
I feel like I have just received a personal human reset session. We could talk for, I feel like, hundreds of hours. There is so many angles, so I would definitely love to bring you back at some point. But I wish you the best of luck with the event that you are hosting here in Prague and all other events. I will stay tuned so I can come to one very soon. But thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you. And thank you, all of you, for being here with us.